why not make your own little Christmas decoration that you can use outside? So this is just made from foliage from your garden or things that you foraged as you've been out walking. We sell an awful lot of these. People often buy them as grave pots, put them on the grave over Christmas. But they're very simple to make. So what do I need? Well, you need something to cut your foliage with, a pair of secateurs or scissors. So what might you find in your garden that you could use? So normally by this time in the winter, most of the things that are going to drop the leaves have already dropped them. So if it's got some leaves on, you can pretty much use it. So it might be garden shrubs like a cuba or privet or anything that's got colourful foliage. You occasionally get ones that flower, so here's some viburnum tinus in flower. Quite often ivy flowers and forms berries ready for Christmas. That's quite useful. So it might even be a grass. This is just a piece of grass that had been cut. Put an elastic band around it to hold it together. That could go in your arrangement. If you're lucky enough to have pine trees in your garden or nearby, pine needles don't drop off when they're dry. Almost like your Christmas tree. If you buy a Nordman, a Noble, or a Fraser Christmas tree, you'll know that the needles don't drop off when you have it in the house. So maybe the trimmings of the bottom of your Christmas tree, you could make a pot out of that. So you might actually have a hedge around your garden. So you could use this as a bit of Leylandii, bit of gold conifer, gold crest, a bit of gold rider. You can trim some of your hedge and use that as the base for your pot. Holly, prickly but useful. And quite often laurels, these are laurel leaves. These can be put in as well, just a different texture. And then you may find pine cones and berries and things and rose hips that you could find in your garden or as you're walking that you could put into it as well. So you can add a bit more glitz and glamour to your little pot. Just make sure that what you buy is waterproof or water resistant. So quite often the birds will beat you to the berries, so you find that your holly hasn't got any berries on it. But you can buy artificial berries that are quite realistic. Quite often people go for Christmas picks. So these are shiny, glittery, but they're designed to be used outdoors. Finally, you might be cones. You can buy cones, put them on wires. Quite often people put cinnamon. So this is a cinnamon sticks, just wired together and put in. Quite often you can find seed heads in your gardens. You're not likely to find these ones. These are lotus heads, but they're very easy to wire. And if you use them outside, they'll last for ages. Finally, you can look at your Christmas decorations. These baubles are shatterproof and plastic and completely waterproof, so you can use them outdoors. What kind of container do I need for my arrangement? If you're going to use it outside, it should really have some drainage, a bit like a flower pot, so that excess water can drain out. If you're going to use it indoors, you might think about using a pot cover or a vase or a ceramic that holds water, and it'll act like a vase that you would use for flowers and keep the foliage fresh. If you're going outside, Oasis is a good choice. So this is an Oasis block. It's wet Oasis, so it holds water like a sponge, and it just keeps the foliage fresh. If you don't want to use Oasis, sand. This is just a pot full of sand, quite heavy. And you just push it in as you would Oasis. You maybe need to water it a little bit more than you would with Oasis. So how do I go about designing my pot? Thing is, I would get your foliage together, cut it all roughly the same length. So we want it to be about there, sticking out about that far. If you go too big, it'll fall out the pot and it'll fall over. If you go too small, your pot will end up too small. So something about that size. So cut all your foliage roughly about that size. So I suggest you lay it out in a ring. So put your base foliage down, play about with the different textures and colours, and just lay it out roughly as you want to put it in the pot. And then it makes it much easier when you're making your pot. So here we have our circle of base foliage. We've just gone green for this one, but you could go any colour. You'll see that it's slightly upright. And then we can use this to build up our foliage. So then we put the next layer of foliage in. So we've got the next layer of foliage in. So we've gone for some contrasting. So we've gone for gold, some laurel leaf, just to give it a different texture. And we're still keeping it slightly upright. And you can see that it's starting to make a dome shape now. So now we're filled in the middle as well. And you've got our dome shape. You could stop there, completely natural looking. But quite often people like to add extra things in to make it more colourful. So if you're going to keep it more natural, you might just want to drop a few cones in. Or a cinnamon stick is quite attractive as well. They can sit just above the foliage. If you can't find any real berries, perhaps some berries tucked in with the gold foliage. So that's kind of natural. So you got cones, berries, and cinnamon. But some people like to go a bit more glitzy. So they might actually go for a glittery gold or a glittery silvery pick. But we quite like these slightly more natural ones where they've got artificial berries and apples. So this kind of pick can go in the middle. It usually comes with a wire. Thing is, if you push it straight in, it can spin round and it can be quite difficult to position. So always just put a little bend at the bottom of the wire. That will allow it to grab hold of the oasis, and then you can position it exactly where you want it to be. So now we have our little pick in the middle. So how do I look after it? First thing, give it a good water again. Thing is, it's designed to be outside, so frost, rain, snow, nothing will really bother it. And everything's held in quite securely by the oasis, so it won't fall out. So you don't have to restrict yourself just to a small arrangement. We make actually really massive arrangements, 2 or 3 foot high, that people can put outside their doors. You could even go up to sort of a bowl size and make a really big arrangement. What tends to be quite popular is a little trough. You can put some height in it. Just make it out of foliage. It will last well into January. And then when the spring bedding starts, you can use it again for spring bedding.